It's Backstage Pass with Steve Ryan. And here's your host, Steve Ryan.
Okay, I know, Suzi, thanks for coming in. I know that a lot of people, especially over here in America, want to hear about Happy Days and Stumbling In, and we can talk about that. And I know you have a new book coming out, so I want to talk about that as well. But what really intrigued me, and this is a fairly new podcast, but you were one of the first people that I requested an interview with, and it's been about 3 months in the making. And so I appreciate, and I'm so excited that we're finally here because I really admire you as an artist, and wanted to kind of dive into, a little more of your background that maybe Americans don't know. And I know we have a lot of viewers in Europe, and they know you very well. But I was just intrigued at how a girl from Detroit, Michigan, went across the pond and has, sold over 55 million records. And I think it's a big story because to me, you were doing rock and roll before Joan Jett was doing rock and roll.
She was a baby.
She was a baby. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have that album cover behind me. I don't know if you can see it, but
Sure.
I mean, to me, it looks like Chrissie Hynde and the Pretenders said, "Let's do a Suzi Quatro kind of album cover for our album cover." And I'm not knocking them. I'm saying
No.
that you were kind of a pioneer. And I know, because I've done some reading, I know that you have said, and correct me if this is wrong, that you weren't trying to break a glass ceiling. That really wasn't on your mind. You just wanted to do rock and roll. Whereas Joan, and I think Chrissy too, have said, we wanted to show that girls could rock.
All you have to do for all that, I didn't know what I was doing. I put it that way because I didn't. I was simply being who I was. I come from a musical family. I had no idea, not even in my head, that I was a female musician. Never described myself as such, and had no idea that it was strange. You just mentioned Joan. She was my biggest fan when I first started back touring America with my British band. She was in the hotel lobby after every gig, just so cute. Before she had a band with her albums, but it's just so cute. And Chrissy, I knew Chrissy when she was a journalist interviewing me so when my documentary Suzi Q came out, that kind of set the record straight. Even though I didn't know what I was doing at the time, when I saw the premiere of that in London, and I saw all these women through the documentary, Chrissy, Joan, Debbie Harry, Kathy Valentine, Sherry Curry, Katie Tunstall, Lita Ford. I can go on and on. They all came through the documentary. And if you paraphrase and squeeze it all down, they all basically said the same thing, that they wouldn't have done what they did had I now done it first, And that was the first time it dawned on me what I had done. And I was standing in that theater, sneaking in because I was booked for a Q&A, but I wanted to see the documentary with an audience. I was standing like this. I was crying.
Oh,
because that's actually the first time it dawned on me that I was the
really?
first. Oh, yes, that's the truth. I didn't have a blueprint. I didn't have a role model.
Right.
I had to just do what I was doing. And when I saw those girls, I was kind of going to myself, I did that. And you think, and I did what? And I was just crying. And now, that was 2019, the documentary came out. So now I do accept humbly that I was the first, and I will take that to my grave, and I'm happy to accept that, but I can't pretend I knew what I was doing.
It was just you. You were just being Suzi,
I
a
was.
girl who loved rock and roll.
Which means the way I look at it is, thank God I didn't know what I was doing, because it means it wasn't manufactured.
Yeah. Or a lot of pressure, without all the other pressures that are already there.
Yeah, sure. I just was doing what I did. Elvis was my first touchstone at 5.5. And that's just always the way I've conducted myself. And if you watch the documentary, so many girls have so many interesting things to say. I just was going, wow, and you think that, and you think that, and you think that. In fact, I called she's a good friend, Sherry Curry, the day after I went to the premiere. Called her in California from the UK. And I told her the story. And I said, Cherie, I got to tell you, I said, I've just kind of discovered something that by me doing what I did, I gave permission all over the world for women to be different. And there was this long pause, transatlantic phone call pause. And then she quite cutely, she went, and you just got that? One of my favorite
Yeah.
lines of all time. I kind
Yeah.
of went, yeah. But I mean,
Wow.
it's great that it happened that way. Great.
Well, yeah. Yeah. I think it kind of explains to me how maybe some of the risks that really probably wouldn't be considered risks that you were taking as a band. If we're just a bunch of guys, maybe people wouldn't have picked up on that.
Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe not. A lot of the girls, I mean, one of the, who was it now? God, I can't remember which girl said it. She said that I didn't lead with my femaleness, and therefore I transcended the gender thing completely.
Yeah.
In fact, I have to go from something Mickey Mouse told me. Bless him. He's up there for a long time now. He was the man that gave me my contract and brought me to the UK. When we were first talking, and I was getting close to having a record coming out, he said to me, which he was right. He said, Suzi, you are going to appeal across the board. He said, you are genderless.
Mm.
Gay guys will like you, straight guys will like you. Gay girls will like you, straight girls will like you. He was 100% correct. I don't know how he saw that,
Yeah.
but he did. And it's not that I'm sexist. Of course I'm female, but I think it's because I don't lead with it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that I'm thinking in my head about what you've said, and I'm kind of blown away. But when you were on Happy Days, I mean, and you were playing Leather Tuscadero, and Americans really got to know who you were as a person. And that's not the only acting you've done. You're an accomplished actress as well. But that kind of stood out. Did you not realize that then? I mean, to me, you were cooler than the Fonz.
Um, what I realized while I was doing that, I was playing the role, acting the role, calling on bits of myself like any good actress will do. You have to find a reality of yourself to put into whatever character you play. So I put Suzi Quatro in there, you know.
Yeah.
Um, I thought it was hilarious that the Americans were discovering, in a way, Suzi Quatro through Leather Tuscadero, which is such a strange, it's the only country in the world that happened in, because I didn't have as many hit singles to begin with over there. There was, and this was explored in my documentary, there was about a 1 or 2 year period where there was this explosion happening that you didn't get in America. You just didn't understand it. I sold lots of albums there. I toured there all the time from 74 onwards, but there was just that little missing bit. So you in America discovered me through Leather Tuscadero. And how strange is that?
Yeah, well, and there's even a band that called themselves the Tuscaderos or something I read about. But you're exactly right. I mean, Can the Can, came out, was a huge hit all across Europe.
So make a stand for your man, honey. Try to can the can. Put your man in the can, honey. Get up while you can. Can the can.
And you were opening with I read with Slade and Thin Lizzy. I mean those are not, those are rockers. And
I
how
was,
did
that was before I had a hit. I had a band together that I begged Mickey to let me do. I said, I'm going crazy here just recording. I've been in a band since I've been 14. I'm going crazy. So I formed a band. Mickey put us on the college circuit here in the UK. We were doing all original material, so all my own songs.
Yeah.
And then he called his friend Chaz Chandler, who was the old bass player from the Animals who managed Slade. And they were about to embark on their first nationwide tour. And Mickey said, do me a favor. I got this girl. She's going to be huge. Put her on at the beginning of the show. So I was added to the bill. Opening act, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And Naughty was always fond of saying that most of the Slade fans threw things at the support group. They loved me.
Yeah.
He said,
Yeah.
Suzi just went out and bang.
Yeah. I was curious as to why you were decided to be a bass player, and I was preparing myself for you to tell me something like, well, Paul McCartney played the bass, and so it was. But I had read that your sister kind of said you're playing the bass.
Well, I don't know why my oh, it's there. I'll tell you the story shortly. Um, we were watching the Ed Sullivan Show for the second time in my life. So the first time was Elvis Presley at 5.5, which was my first light bulb moment where I watched him. And at 5.5, in my brain was, I'm going to do that. Crazy. Then we were watching, because everybody watched Ed Sullivan every Sunday. It was a family variety show. And we were watching, and the Beatles came out. And we got off the phone, my elder sister Patty and we ran to the phones, called our two sister friends and another girl, we all are on extensions, whose father played clarinet in my dad's band, which is crazy, but it's all meant to be. And Patty said, why don't we form an all-girl band? And everybody went, yeah, what a great idea. I was already trained in classical piano, and I'm a very good pianist, and drums. I play percussion. I read and write and play both instruments. All the girls chose an instrument. They all, I want guitar, I want drums, I want this. And I kind of went, which is unlike me, shows you how fate comes in. I kind of said, hey, what am I going to play? Because everything was taken.
Right.
And Patty said, you're going to play bass. And I went, okay. I didn't care. And I'll just tell you the end of that story. So I went to my dad after the phone call, who was a musician all his life. We had every instrument you can think of was in the house I grew up in. Everything you could think of. So I said to my dad, we're starting a band. He said, great, because he's a musician. And I said, do you have a bass I can use? And he said, sure. And when I tell musicians this, I can see them wanting to hit me. He gave me for my first bass a 1957 Fender Precision. It's like giving a 16-year-old a Rolls Royce to drive.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a smaller bass. I didn't know there was a lighter bass. I didn't know anything about that. All I knew was my dad gave me this bass to learn. So it's no wonder when you think about it, again, fate, that I ended up being a good bass player. I learned on the hardest.
Yeah.
But I didn't question, oh, can't I have something lighter? I didn't know there was such a thing. Alice Cooper, who's a very good friend of mine, says in my documentary, why didn't she get something smaller? I just go,
yeah, because you're not the tallest person on stage, for sure. I read what
nope.
you're like 5'2".
I'm 5'2", yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that kind of makes sense to a quote. Tell me if this is a correct quote that I read, that you said, I never wanted to be a singer in the band. I wanted to be the band.
Yeah,
so
sure.
you could play all the instruments.
I can play all the instruments. I do actually do a song on the keys by myself on stage, and I go up and do a drum duet with the drummer, and I do a very celebrated 6.5-minute difficult bass solo. And
Wow.
it's developed through the years, and it's not easy. I challenge bass players to do it. It is a good one. I cover all the styles, and you see people. My front of house said, when you're doing that 6.5-minute bass solo, people in the audience are just going with the mouth hanging open.
Yeah. Tell me about how you met Mike Chapman and Nikki, and how that relationship started. Because
Sure.
I feel like that was a big formula of your success, with
Sure.
you guys working together.
Huge. And it was again destined to be. We came off the Slade tour, obviously very together as a band, because you get together when you do something like that. And we had our sound. By the end of that tour, we were a unit. And I was writing all my own stuff. And Mickey said, I've just signed these two songwriters, Nikki Chin and Mike Chapman, and they are particularly adept at writing the 3-minute commercial single. That's what they're good at. You've got your sound, you've got your songs. That's the meat of who you are. Do you mind if I send them along to a show and they see what you do and see if they can craft something. I said, I have got no problem with that whatsoever. What a compliment anyway, you know. So they came and saw a show, and mostly the stuff we were doing, which I had written myself, was chum to dum to dum to dum. I was very boogie based, very boogie based. And they went away after seeing us, and they came back with Can the Can, a demo. We were down in the basement. All the musicians put their 2 cents in. The drummer came up with that. Da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-dum, da-da-da. And my ex, you know, who was my guitar player, he came with that lovely riff. I came up with that nice little bass thing, and we had a song. And when
Yeah.
Mickey final recording in the studio, he said, that's a #1.
Yeah. And it was huge.
Huge. It sold 2.5 million around the world, just that song.
Yeah.
And of course, all the B-sides were my own, and 99% of the albums were my own. And that collaboration lasted quite a long time. So much so that I sometimes forgot who wrote what.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Mike has said that too. It crossed over so seamlessly. He always wrote songs suited to my character, suited to the way I spoke. And in fact, there's a track called Mama's Boy that is a Quatro Tucky song. And I was in the studio recording the vocal to that. I always remember this. And I stopped singing and I said, Mike, do me a favor. Next time you write me a single, leave some breathing space. He said, Susie, that's one of yours. I went, that's how close we were. And
Yeah.
finally it fell apart, and or it just moved different areas, and I ended up just doing all my own stuff. And now, of course, I do all my own stuff, except I write a lot with my son now. And of course, I just had the wonderful album with Katie Tunstall, Face to Face.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm pretty much my own architect of my own dream now. Oh, I like that. I'm the architect of my own dream.
Yeah. You know, you talk about Face to Face, the album that you put out with KT, and I was listening to that yesterday, and there's a couple of songs that really stood out to me. It's a great album, but Shine the Light, Good Kind of Hot is great. But the surprise to me was Damage, because there's kind of like this country fiddle feel to it. Which
There was and in fact, just to go on those tracks, Shine a Light, I do live, and KT does live. It's an earworm. It just in your ear, and it's got that message, which I say on stage. Doesn't matter who, where, why, what you are. We all have a light. It and let nobody switch it off.
Yeah.
Good Kind of Hot was me putting a bit of rock edge. I sent her my idea. She went, "Whoa, you know." Give it to me, give it to me, give it to me, baby. Gonna give you all that I've got. Good kind of hot, good kind of hot, good kind of hot. She always calls it the rockiest side of the album, which it is. And Damage, my son, he's very he produced the album and played electric guitar on it. He's very non-bragging kind of guy, very humble. And we were having a listening party at some neighbors. And Damage came on, and unlike him, he stuck his head in the door and he went, I won on this. I won with Mom and KT. I went, what did you win? He said, I wanted the fiddle and you guys didn't. And I said, we didn't. He said, no. And I said, let me put it on. And if you don't like it, we'll take it off. And I won. I said, it made the song. He said, I know.
It really does. He's right.
He does. So he was right.
Tell him when God made man, she was only joking. So take your baggage and use this pen. Down the line, we'll meet again. Enjoy your life now, enjoy your time. Here's the damage. Now sign on the dotted line.
Both of us said, oh, no. And he said, please let me do it. You know, all credit to him for that one. Yeah.
It's beautiful. Yeah. How, what's it like playing in the Royal Albert Hall?
Well, I worked out my intro and I went out there and I said, hello. Well, I start with the wild one. All my life, I wanted to be somebody.
All my life I wanted to be somebody, and here I am. I know what I've got, and there ain't nobody gonna take it away from me. So let me tell you what I am. I'm a red hot fox, I can take the knocks. I'm a hammer from hell, honey, can't you tell? I'm the wild one. Yes, I'm the wild one.
And here I am. It's unbelievable. But I did, after the first medley, I said, I want to welcome everybody. I said, I've been working on this. I said, I'm the queen of rock and roll. And I'm changing this, the Royal Wave, into this.
Yeah.
Fantastic. You know, you're playing a special gig. You just are. And in fact, last year I did the Palladium, which is the other very special gig.
Yeah.
And I'm playing that again this year. And we're actually filming it. Finally, we're making a Blu-ray of the show.
Oh, that's exciting.
It
Yeah.
is
Yeah. When you see either of those venues on a DVD or, you know, a concert special or whatever, it just seems different than other gigs.
you're somewhere special. You just do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're on, I remember before I walked out, now this is what's crazy. This was right after COVID, and this was April of 22. My last gig had been in September of 21.
Oh,
And the first gig for the following year, where it was all coming back on again, was at the Royal Albert Hall. And I practiced in my front room here to the live CD of the show, but I didn't practice. I did the show. If you can understand, I did the show. I worked up a sweat. I came off for the interval. I went back, did the show. And when I went back out for that show, you had no idea I hadn't done a gig since September. I was on the money. But I said to my husband just before I went out, which is unlike me, I said, I'm a little bit nervous tonight. And he went, no, don't. He said, it's just another gig. And I went, no, it's not.
yeah.
I, for some reason, felt like my whole career was on the line. I don't know why. And the reviews, ridiculous. My husband actually said, did you write this yourself?
Yeah.
It's a very funny line. What reviews? I mean, you can retire on that. And I was high for a week after that show. A week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just up there. So yeah, certain gigs you do know you got something to prove. Even though you don't, you do. Every gig you have something to prove, but some are just that little bit more important.
Yeah. Because you wouldn't be invited to play there if you had something to prove. You've already proved it.
I know, but it's good that you feel that way.
Yeah.
Every
sure.
gig, I laugh at myself because every gig, just before I go out and become Suzi Quatro, I'm standing backstage. I'm little Susie from Detroit. That's who I am. And just before I take that step over the footlights, doesn't matter. It's the same every show. I'm going, wonder if they're going to like me tonight. I hope they're going to like. I wonder if they're going to like. And then I do that step, and I'm her.
Yeah.
Even though she's me, there's just that magical step over the footlights, And all of a sudden, you're in a different world.
Yeah. It just comes out. you had covered "All Shook Up" by Elvis, I think, on your first album, and I had
Yes.
read that Elvis was very fond of that version.
Bless my soul, what's wrong with me? I'm itching like a man on a fuzzy tree. My friends say I'm acting queer as a bug. I'm in love. I'm all shook up. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Did
He
you and him
was.
talk about it?
Yes, I don't mind talking about that. It's a very known story. It's a good story. All Shook Up got into the lower ends of the charts. He heard it. I was in Memphis and the phone rang in a hotel. We were on tour. It's 1974. And I think we were on the tour with Uriah Heep at that point. I think it was Uriah Heep. Yeah. Anyway, it was Elvis's people. And they said, we would like, Elvis would like to speak. And I'm just kind of going. And all of a sudden he was on the phone. And I'm like, oh, and I try to keep it cool, keep it cool. And he said, this is Elvis, like I didn't know. And he said to me, I've heard your version of All Shook Up, and I think it's the best since my own. And I'd like to invite you to Graceland while you're in town.
Wow.
And I said, which is the famous part, I said, well, I'm very busy right now. because I just wasn't quite ready to meet him yet. I wasn't scared to meet him. I wasn't quite ready. I needed there to be a little bit more me establishing myself. I think I wanted to meet him more on an even keel. And I felt still new as opposed to who he was,
Gotcha. Yeah.
But I was told by Linda Thompson that he used to like to go to Rodney Bingenheimer's and sit upstairs in the VIP thing and watch film clips of me. So nothing sexual in it. I think he just found me a kindred soul.
Yeah.
And he has sat on my shoulder my entire career. Google Singing with Angels, my tribute to him.
Mhm.
Great film clip for it with James Burton and the Jordanaires.
Singing with angels, singing with angels, part of God's master plan. There's so many angels walking hand in hand. What a beautiful band.
You don't
Yeah.
get better than that.
Yeah. Yeah. I had heard or read that one time after a gig, your dad got upset and punched Chuck Berry. True?
Yes. It was the Pleasure Seekers. We were in Buffalo, New York. It was at the Glen Park Casino. I still remember the name. Wow. And we had left Detroit a couple days early with the whole family because the riots were going on.
Mhm.
And my dad got nervous for the safety of the family. And he said, you guys are going to your gig early, and we're all going. So we all went. And we were supporting Chuck Berry at this gig. And we were backstage waiting to go on. And I mean, actually, we'd already been on, sorry. And Chuck Berry was on, and he came off. And as he came off stage, he saw one of the girls in the band sitting on the couch. She very big busted blonde, good looking girl. And unfortunately, just as he saw her and jumped over on the couch and was messing around in a kind of fun sexual way, obviously a lot of people are there. My dad happened to walk into the room at that point, and he just grabbed him and went, boom. I said, Dad, you just hit Chuck Berry. And I reminded Chuck Berry of that in the 90s. I went to see him. I said, do you remember the Glen Park Casino? He said, yes. I said, that was my dad, and I was the bass player. He said, how can I forget that? I said, right. And I said, I'm the sweet little rock and roller. He said, right.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great story. Hey, I realized I was going to show you the shirt that I'm wearing today because I got it for this occasion. I don't know if you can see it because my
I
camera's.
like it. I can see it. How great. That's me
Yeah.
with my bass that I told you about.
Yeah. Yeah. It's my Suzi Quatro shirt. So
Yeah.
I pulled it out
Excellent.
specifically for this conversation. I've kept you a little bit longer than we promised. Are you okay to go just a few more minutes?
Sure.
Okay, because we haven't talked about Stumbling In yet, and I know Americans, want to hear about you and Chris Norman and how that came together. And he was from Smokey, and I think that was a Mike Chapman song too.
It was. Long story short, we were in Germany recording at the EMI studios in Cologne. I believe it was the If You Knew Susie album.
Mhm.
And there was a big award ceremony going on. And we all were at the award ceremony. And then after that, there was a private party for all the stars. Mike Chapman was there. Obviously, he's producing me. So he came to the award ceremony. Lots of big people back, in this little room. And there was a band on. And I won't name names, but I grabbed one big star and I said, hey, want to go up and jam? No, I'm not working tonight. That's the whole point. Asked another one, no. I went, oh, for God's sake, that's the whole point, that you're not working, that you can have fun and remember the old days. So Chris Norman was there. I didn't ask him. I grabbed him. And I dragged him up on the stage. I said, you're going to sing with me. So we started to jam with the band. I picked up the bass, was singing rock and roll songs. Mike was sitting in the audience and he went, oh, I like that. He liked how we looked. He liked how we sounded together. So the next day, he came into the studio and he said he was preoccupied. He said to the engineer, turn this mic on, turn the tape on, Susie, get on the keyboards and switch my guitar on. I said, okay. So he said, Susie, I'm going to play something. And on the piano, whatever line I play, he gave me the key. He said, can you go da, 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 on the keys? I said, sure. So he went, our love is alive, da, 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 da. And so we begin, da, 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 da. He did the first chorus, half the chorus. And I went, wow, what's that? He said, it's a song I'm writing for you and Chris. I'll finish the verse when I get home.
Our love is alive, and so we begin. Foolishly laying our hearts on the table, stumbling in. Our love is a flame, burning within. Now and then, firelight will catch us, stumbling in. Stumbling in. Stumbling in.
Such was the magic
Yeah.
of Mike Chapman. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. Wow.
And then when we recorded it, just to finish that story off, my band played on it because he was worried about upsetting Smokey because he was the singer of Smokey.
Right. Right.
So my band played on it. And Mike said, right, now what we're going to do on the vocal, which is why it's symmetrical, you're going to stand here and Chris is going to stand here, two mics, just like I saw you on the night, and you're
Yeah.
going to sing it live to each other.
Yeah, and
And
the
that's
video works.
magic, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great video. You in 2019 you put out like a short, like an EP of covers called Uncovered, which I was listening to the other day, and I love your renditions of you did Bad Moon Rising, Midnight Hour, I Feel the Earth Move, The Boss, Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, and I guess I was curious when I was listening to it is why you chose. I mean, those must all mean something to you.
Every single song. I did actually do it with my son who produced it. He had suggestions. I had suggestions. He suggested The Boss. I'm a big
love it.
James Brown fan, but I said, he had to convince me, and then he convinced me, and it's so many people's favorite.
I paid the cost to be the boss. Paid the cost to be the boss. Yeah. I paid the cost to be the boss. Look at me. You know what you see.
Oh, it works.
Oh, it works. Dock of the Bay has been a spiritual favorite of mine forever. Bad Moon Rising. He wanted a Credence track. I said, only if it's this one. And that I say, there's a stream coming out soon. We're going to be announcing it very soon. Me live at the 100 Club doing these 6 tracks, one time only. You can see them one time only. When I did Bad Moon Rising, I do it on stage. I said to the everybody in the studio, this could have been a Suzi single. It's so down my street.
I see the bad moon rising. I see trouble on the way.
Yeah.
I think the Earth Moved Richard suggested that. I'm a huge Carole King fan, but he suggested that track, and I'm really glad. And Midnight Hour, I did that into Pleasure Seekers. So yeah, there's a reason for every track on there. And when we did that live at the 100 Club, wow, it just took off. Just
Yeah.
took off. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah, it holds up. It holds up beautifully. Yeah. You aside from your acting and you're being a musician, you've put out a number of books. You wrote a memoir, but you've also written, I think, 3 volumes of poetry, but lyrics, those books. And then you've got a new book coming out. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I've Unzipped was my first book, my autobiography, which
Right.
there's not one word in there that I didn't write myself. I was insistent on that. The Hurricane, which is a novel, which, watch this space, could very likely be soon a movie. Then I wrote my first poetry book, Through My Eyes,
Right.
illustrated, coffee table, beautiful, some of my best work. Then I wrote Through My
Art.
Thoughts,
Oh,
which
Through My
was
Thoughts. Yeah.
check a book that was during COVID.
Yeah.
Then I wrote Through My Words, which is an illustrated coffee book, which is lyrics. And then I wrote Through My Heart, which is another illustrated coffee book. And I'm now working on my next novel, which is nearly done. I just put it away for the day, so I'm nearly done with it. I don't want to tell you the title in case somebody steals it, but it's quite something. It's a psychological thriller. Then
Nice.
I'm working now on my third poetry book. That's 3/4 of the way through, because you have to wait till you gather a certain amount. So I've got about half of what I need. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a very prolific writer.
Yeah. You've got all these creative avenues. You're a musician, obviously. You're an author. I mean, you're a writer, but you write, your own songs, and you're an actress. Is there one that you prefer more than others, or does it just kind of depend on what zone you're in that day?
I'm an artiste, and I
Yeah.
always have been, and I always wanted to be able to do whatever I could do within that artiste frame.
Yeah.
So I don't do what I can't do. I only do what I can do, but I am very creative. I am. That's a big word. I am creative. I love entertaining, and I love communicating. So everything that I do is all within that ball of wax,
Yeah. I was talking to Kevin Godley last week, and he said something very similar, because he's got a lot of other projects outside of his, being in bands and being a musician. He's done a lot of other things like you. And he said something very similar. It's just the creative process. It's just another, creative outlet. And I so
can't
admire
not
that.
do it. I can't not do it. I mean, very often, and I'll get to about midnight, and I'll be watching my laptop or something be on my mind. I cannot go to sleep till this poem comes out.
Yeah.
And it flies out sometimes. Or I'm writing a song, or I'm working on my book, or I'm happiest when I love entertaining. I could not exist without entertaining. But I love creating. I love communicating. Words are my tool, I guess.
Yeah. Did you say a quote that I read, and tell me if this is true, about retiring? You said, "I will retire when I go on stage, shake my ass, and there's silence."
I said it at 35. I'm now going to be 74 in June, and guess what? It
Same.
hasn't happened. So if I can still say that at nearly 74, yo to me.
Yes. Suzi Quatro, I have so enjoyed this conversation. I feel like we barely scratched the surface. I hope maybe we can schedule a follow-up sometime in the future, maybe when one of your other projects is coming together, and we can talk about that, and maybe some of the
Anytime.
things that we haven't been able to talk about.
Let's do it. I haven't got a problem with that. I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Suzi. Take care.
For questions or comments, email Steve at steveryan.songoftheday@gmail.com.